English brewing in the Middle Ages relied primarily on herbs and spices. Hops weren't used until the 16th century. Let's watch how housewives made ale.
It's like if it's on the internet, it's true, right? The base ale had the hops in it, so I knew nothing was going to spoil. We used different processes for the yarrow and the heather versus the ground ivy and the wormwood. For the two that involve flowers, the heather and the yarrow, we added them to the boil, and the process is in here in the notes as well. We added them to the boil, but then we also effectively dry hopped with them. We infused with them in primary. So you get a more pronounced herbal, flowery, polleny flavor in both of those than you will in the others. When you brew a beer, when you Vorloff, that's just something that you always do. Because I always did it when the recipe said to do it. And I didn't do it when the recipe didn't say to do it. But it doesn't say it in the recipe because you always do it. Properties of creeping Charlie: diuretic, astringent, stimulant, has been used to relieve coughs, sore throats, and bleeding gums. Considered to be a tonic for the kidneys and a blood purifier. We were basically using all of these herbs like you would use hops, putting them in at the beginning of the boil, based on the recipes in there.
I went to the home brew con. There's a bunch of very knowledgeable people who brew with herbs, commercially with herbs. Mm-hmm. None of them work. They all infuse.
No. A couple methiclins, when I first started brewing meads, I made a couple methiclins that involved boiling some of the herbs with honey for an hour, and yeah, they were bitter because that's what happens when you boil herbs for an hour. That's the point of adding bittering hops at the beginning of the boil and letting them go for the full time. So if I ever do this again, I would definitely be infusing with these rather than adding them to the boil. Next one going around is yarrow. For those of you who don't, I actually grew up with yarrow in my mom's garden, and now it's in my garden. But there were a lot of people. We had a yarrow. We had this experiment at the bar on Saturday when we were hosting, and a lot of people didn't know what yarrow was. So there is a lovely picture from my garden, I did a lot of research on this in particular because after the guild left my house the night we did this brewing experiment, I remembered that I needed to brew something for the beer garden that we had after the Penza Calf Marathon on Saturday, because Ethelmark Brewers were hosting the beer garden and I was running the race, so I wanted to make sure that there was something yummy or at least educational for people to drink. And in the research for the yarrow, it's antiseptic, antimicrobial, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, works wonders in a number of ways. And the Latin name is actually Acalia millefolium, 1,000 leaves of Achilles, because Achilles and his men reportedly used yarrow to staunch their bleeding after battle. So it also does that. Helps for breathing problems if inhaled as a steam, lowers fevers as a tea, staunches bleeding if used as a poultice, also used for indigestion, urinary tract infections, ballistic dysentery, malaria, and menstrual cramps. So pretty much a cure-all. And the interesting thing was, so I did a second running of the grain that we used for this experiment after the guild left, and stayed up pretty much all night babysitting the second batch. But I figured if I'm going to make something for runners, anti-inflammatory and painkiller, you could do worse than that. So I had this huge 5-gallon batch of yarrow small ale, bottled it, took a bunch to the beer garden. Kept a bunch in my camp as well to drink for myself and share with my campmates. And the fascinating thing was, I do a lot of half marathons, full marathons. I know how sore I'm gonna be after a race. I was drinking the yarrow ale all day on Saturday and then again on Sunday. I was not sore at all. Well, and then we also infused with it, and we used the leaves and the tops for this one. I'm gonna grab a little bit off. Thank you. All right, and then that brings us to the last one on the list, wormwood. So this is, I'm passing around a cutting from my garden. This is wormwood that you can buy at the grocery or at the garden center. And what we used in here, same thing. You can also buy it in your brew shop. This is not European wormwood. This is American wormwood. It is not the it is not what goes into real deal absinthe, but probably does contain small amounts of thujone. As far as FDA requirements, at least for U.S. quantities, anything containing thujone that's sold in the U.S. Has to be thujone free, which is less than 10 milligrams per liter. Mugwort, oregano, sage, yarrow, and wormwood. In small doses, you get stimulating, mood-elevating effects, and at high doses, muscle spasms and convulsions. I get a little bit of a licorice note from the wormwood. I don't like licorice, but can pass that around. As far as properties of wormwood, it's an antimicrobial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, has been used to treat digestive problems, intestinal worms, fevers, malaria. According to this lovely, well-sourced book, has been used in sacred rituals the world over from North America to China.